Hey guys, this is Alfred back with another video. So this is going to be a little bit of a different video. I just want to talk about what Hoyoverse can do to buff the old characters. So they did mention that they are going to do some stuff to the old characters, and hopefully this will make the character stronger and more viable in the meta. But anyhow, these are some of my thoughts of what Hoyoverse can do to make some of the characters better. So for information, these characters are all released before version 2.0. So any character after that I won't be talking about. I'll only be talking about the characters that I feel are much weaker in the meta. So some of the characters that are still relatively decent in the meta, I don't think should have a buff, but those that are on the weaker side will definitely need a buff. And with all that said, let's begin with this video. Now the first character I want to talk about is Yanqing. This character is literally at the bottom of the tier list. Yanqing really carried me in the early game, but as you go to the later game, you'll realize that Yanqing teams are either very constricted, and even if you have the right pieces for him, he's still not going to do enough damage, meaning that you need to get a lot of his eidolons for him to do damage. The best way you can buff Yanqing is removing the passive where he loses his soul steal sync state whenever he gets damage. This is really absurd, the fact that if you get damage you lose 50% of your DPS. I don't think that should be the case for characters. You should just definitely remove this and he's completely fine. You don't have to buff his damage numbers or anything. The amount of crit you're getting from his kit is already fantastic, so you don't need to buff his numbers. Just remove this passive and Yanqing will be definitely much better. The second character I want to talk about is Welt. Welt is a very interesting character. Unlike Yanqing, he can be played in much more teams where you want to delay and slow opponents. However, in the end game where the amount of turns you take is very crucial, slowing your opponents is just not going to cut it anymore, where you want to finish fights much faster so you can get a higher score in the end game. So my suggestion for Welt is make his skill bounce prioritize characters with higher HP or highest weakness left in the bar. This way his skill does more damage to the bosses and will prioritize them more. Or you can add an extra bounce to the skill. This will make it such that you can mitigate more of the RNG and still make Welt more viable. Obviously, Welt damage numbers are still pretty good. He still does a chunk of damage, but the way his kit just works right now is not really suited that well for the end game. So giving him an extra oomph hopefully will make him more viable. The next character I want to talk about is Bailu. Bailu is still a really decent healer, although her healing is just very inconsistent. Obviously, the best way you can buff Bailu is by either making her healing prioritize lower health targets. This will make her healing more consistent and will actually make her one of the better healers in the game. Or you can give her healing an extra bounce similar to Welt so that you can mitigate a little bit more of the RNG, although you are still subjugated to that RNG. And the last of the three characters I want to talk about is Gepard. Gepard is a character that lives and dies by his ultimate. As his ultimate scales based on defense percent, you need to really ask yourself whether you want to prioritize more defense for a chunkier shield, or you want to prioritize more energy recharge so you can get to that ultimate faster. So you need to be sacrificing one or the other for Gepard to work. And another problem with Gepard is how useless his talent is, where he reses at 50% HP whenever he's knocked down. Using Gepard since I started this game, I realized that the moment Gepard gets knocked down, you're pretty much screwed and your team is probably pretty much dead already. So the best way to change Gepard's kit is by changing his talent completely to something more useful. Maybe something like giving him a taunt whenever he uses skill, or giving his team a mini shield whenever he uses skill will be fantastic. You'll just give your team a little bit more sustain while charging up that ultimate. Obviously, this is a big change, so I don't think Hoyoverse will do this. I feel like this will make Gepard a very fantastic character that can rival some of the meta tanks in the game right now. Let's talk about some of the event characters. The first one I want to talk about is Seele, or Seele, however you pronounce it. Seele is just such a weak character right now in the meta. The main reason why is that she is primarily single target, but technically you can still play her in AoE game modes as long as she's able to one-shot the small creeps. And that is the problem. If you're not able to one-shot these smaller minions, her viability becomes much weaker. And with power creep right now and the amount of HP inflation going around in the game, I won't even be surprised if Seele won't even be able to one-shot the smaller creeps. So the best way to buff Seele is either by buffing her damage numbers or changing her talent to consume 0 skill points. As you know, when you have the resurgence, you still would consume a skill point, which makes Seele a very skill point hungry character. So just by making her talent consume 0 skill point is just fantastic. Or you can give her unlimited procs of her talent where she still has to consume skill points. So this will make her still a character that you need to decide whether you want to use her skill or basic attack in order to proc her talent. So I think this is the best way you can change Seele skill, either change her number or change how her talent works. This is so that she can compete at the higher levels with other DPS. And the final character I feel like you need to buff, especially for the event characters, is gonna be Silverwolf. Now, contrary to what a lot of people say that Silverwolf really changed how a lot of the characters work in Honkai Star Rail. At this point, I do agree. Her mitigating the weakness for your team changed a lot of how characters and how teams are to be built against certain bosses. But right now, she is in a really weak state because most of the characters that are released now can just create their own weakness on the enemy or completely bypass the enemy's weakness bar. So in order to make her more competitive, the best way to change Silverwolf is to change her skill from single target to an AoE. Now, this might sound absurd. A lot of the team Silverwolf can be played now is mainly an Acheron team, and she will only be mostly used in single target game modes like Memory of Chaos or Apocalyptic Shadow, where you're just trying to kill the main boss and ignore the others. So just by giving her an AoE means that she can be ran more in AoE teams where she is very undesirable right now. That should be the best way to change her. I don't think you need to change her ultimate. Her ultimate is very strong, so having a defense down on one target is completely balanced. But in my opinion, having that weakness generation for the whole enemy team instead of just one will give her that extra buff that she will need, and she will definitely be played in more teams. And with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know this is a very different video, but I just wanted to talk about what are some things Hoyoverse can do to make the old characters more viable. If you like more content like this, please do leave a like. It shows me I should do more. Comment down below what you would change for the old characters to make them stronger in the current meta. And finally, do subscribe. We'll be doing more content like this in the future. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Peace.